first of all, what is your biggest pet peeve about people thinking New Zealand and Australia are the same?
Pet peeve. It doesn't really annoy me that much. I know it might annoy, other people, and might annoy, Kiwis to get us mixed up. But to me, it doesn't really annoy me that much. If they think I'm New Zealander, then I just, lightly correct them and say I'm Australian, So it doesn't really bother me, because what's the point of getting angry at someone when they get mixed up with you? You just be nice, you just be polite and just say, there's very, very similar, the accents are very similar, but there's slight differences. Like, we say fish and chips, for example, and they'll say fish and chops.
Okay.
That's an example. Like, but I don't get annoyed when people mistake me.
So I want you to tell my students the differences that are perhaps the ones that are things that people would not think. They're very different, even though the countries are close to one another. Can you name some differences?
For example, we have Australian Aborigines.
Mm-hmm.
Over in New Zealand, they don't call them Aborigines; they call them Maori, or the Maori people. And I do believe that, or the Maori language is the second official language of New Zealand. English is still their first language. As for us, we just have English, and we don't have the Aboriginal languages as official. The second language has always been English. Another big difference is obviously the size of the countries. Australia's massive, and you've got New Zealand that's much smaller. Economy is much bigger here in Australia, as you can imagine. Population is much bigger. It's about 27, 28 million compared to New Zealand. It's about 5.5 million. So it's massive, quite a big difference in population. I'm not sure about politics. I guess I'm not 100%. I guess in some ways it's similar. It may be different, so I don't know enough to comment about.
Do you think it's similar because they also have a prime minister?
Yes, yeah. We both have prime ministers, so I believe that politics are very similar. Might be a couple different things. I don't know. But I would think that a lot of it's very similar, between the two countries.
And about Australia specifically, do you feel like Australia, as a country that has English as a first language, do you think there's more influence of this country onto the rest of the world because of English? And do people, for instance, I see a lot of Australian actors going to Hollywood and playing American characters. So why do you think that is?
I'm not really sure. You would think, coming from Australia, they would play more Australian characters. I think, well done for Australian actors, by the way, to make it big over there. They first had to make it kind of big here. So a lot of the actors, I'm not sure if you've heard of the show called Home and Away.
Yes, I remember watching it when I was there.
Oh, right. So you know both shows. So a lot of them get big in the local TV shows like them too, and then if they get some notoriety, then they get. So if they make it big in their backyard, then they go over to the States and try to make it big there, and we've done well. Hugh Jackman, you got the Hemsworth brothers. Oh God, what's her name? Blanchett. What's her first name? Can't
Kate?
remember. Kate Blanchett. Yeah. So that made it pretty big. Nicole Kidman, another one.
Yeah, Nicole
Actually,
Kidman. That's and that's the influence I'm talking about, because sure that they want these actors because they're good and they're
yeah.
English speaking, and then perhaps to make that leap from Australia to the USA, it's probably easier than, for example, go play a French character. So I think the leap to make is probably it's closer because it's already English that they speak. But do
Yeah.
you like when people talk about Australian English, it's not just a pronunciation, right? So I want you to, if you can think of off the top of your head, like some expressions that people say in Australian English that do not
Oh,
sound like, yeah, like something that people would say in America, for example.
well, first and foremost, as you know, you've been here. G'day.
Yeah, good day.
Or g'day, mate. That is Australian. Um, so it's meant to be good day. It's
Yes.
just they dropped the double OD for some reason. It's just good day. Good day, mate, which is friend, you know. So that's just Australian itself. I haven't. You wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see that in America unless you was as an Australian in America. But they won't. They wouldn't. They'll never say that anywhere else. Just Australia. Um, how's it going? All right.
Okay.
How is it going? All right. But it's more like it's like fast forward, isn't it? There's a lot of words missing. It's like how's it?
Right.
HOWCIT. How's it going? They drop the G. All right. All right. I don't know. It's weird. It's not missing a lot of letters, but you can still understand what they're saying. So they're in a rush. I know we're weird. Uh, um, there's also vulgar terms. I won't get into too much, but that
So you have like different cuss terms and things like that, cuss words and different ones that people
like
don't.
the
But
popular
don't.
word is see you that word. I didn't say the whole word, but that's become popular. We stole it from England. That
Okay.
word
So
is actually English.
yes, all right. I remember many years ago, Paul, my ex, was visiting. He was visiting Brazil, and he was being introduced to all of my friends, of course, and all my friends spoke English. And when he started speaking, people would be asking him, "Oh, are you British?" And do you yourself feel like there is any similarity in British English and Australian English, or do you not see it at all? Because I see people mixing it up sometimes.
Um, well, by the way, speak accent. Um, I'm just trying to think if people have mistaken me as British. They probably have, but um, no, no. Again, you know, people might not know the difference between English and an Aussie. Um,
Right.
but again, I don't care if they're mistaken me.
Right.
Like I
But do you see like that there is any similarity? Because for instance, when people say to me, I was speaking Portuguese and someone said to me, "Oh, that sounds almost Russian." And I don't think it does at all. But
I
but
thought,
that's what people hear it. People hear it
yeah,
like that. So I'm wondering if, like, in the scopes of languages, how people perceive how you're speaking, it can be very different from their personal experiences as well. If they've never heard any other language, they've heard Russian, but they haven't heard, for example, too much Spanish, because I feel like
mm,
Portuguese sounds more like Spanish.
sorry, Spanish, yeah.
So, what about diversity in Australia? Do you feel like there is more diversity now than in like 10 years ago? In previous decades, do you feel like there's more diversity? There are more people of different ethnicities living there?
I think so.
Oh,
Oh,
you think so?
multiculturalism, you know. Um, I definitely believe um, there's been more people coming here, and not just holidays to live, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is great. Because I like to meet new people. I've got no one against Australians like me, but I love to meet people from Japan, England, and Spanish, and all these other places around the world. But I believe more people have come here in the past 10 years.
Yeah. And you feel like there is in society more acceptance?
I believe so. I like to believe. I would like to believe no person from the outside, no looking as Australians are no friendly. But I've heard also people saying the Australians are racist. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe we're all racist. There are some people who are Australians who are racist. You know what I mean? Just because a few of us are racist, that doesn't mean we're racist as a whole. I'm
Right.
not racist at all.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you get that in any country. People, we might think, or some of Australians might think that Americans are racist, but again, you know, there's like a few bad apples that spoil it for the country. I don't think all Americans are racist. So yeah,
So
it's up to them.
you feel like there is acceptance in society, but there's also a misconception that people will perhaps they don't know that that there is acceptance. People will they will I don't know, like assume that everyone is a certain way just because they've heard it somewhere or because
Mhm.
they don't have all the right information. Because there's a lot of that as well. Before I went to Australia,
Misinformation. Yeah,
people would say to me, like, "Aren't you afraid of the racism over there? Because they don't like the Aboriginals. They are people of color, and you're going there." And so people would say that to me just without knowing all the information. When I was there, I felt like there was acceptance already almost 30 years ago. That was acceptance in society there for diversity. And I believe it's probably only getting better with time. How about this? I want to ask you, people think that the capital of Australia is Sydney. What do you tell them?
I tell them it's incorrect. I don't be hard on them or anything like that. I just educate them a little bit. It's always been Canberra, ACT, Australian Capital Territory. So that's the name of the state, and it's always been Canberra.
Can you repeat the ACT part for my students, what that stands for?
Australian Capital Territory.
Wonderful. So
Yeah,
Canberra, not
Canberra,
Sydney,
not
Canberra.
Sydney. A lot of people make the mistake because Sydney's Australia's biggest city, and that's where people make the mistake. It is bigger than Canberra, yes, um, but yeah, it's always been Canberra, not Sydney. Not to say not to take anything away from Sydney at all, although
Right.
I've never been there, but Canberra.
So so the United States is divided in 50 states and Brazil is divided into 27 states. What are the divisions of Australia? Is it states? Is it regions?
We call them states. There's 7 states,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't call them provinces or anything like that. I don't even know what a province is. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
similar to a state in definition.
A province
We
is
don't.
smaller, yeah. So, and what are they? Just so my students will know.
So we start from my state because why not? So South Australia, you got Western Australia, New South Wales, Northern Territory, Victoria, Tasmania, it's that small island down the bottom, and ACT. 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So yeah, they're the 7 states.
Is New South Wales a state?
Yes.
Okay, because that's where
yeah.
I was. That's where I was in New South Wales, and it's an interesting perspective to hear because people perhaps don't realize how the divisions of the countries are, and some people think that only the United States has states. And I tell people, hey, there are states in Brazil. They're divided in states as well. But places like Norway, for instance, is such a small country, you can't really divide it into states. So they're divided in regions, in smaller regions. And just to finalize, I want to ask you if you had to tell someone, hey, come to Australia, you need to see this, what would you recommend?
Australia as a whole, for like a bit of a spokesperson, try and get the people to visit here. Well, I won't mention the snakes and spiders because a lot of people are scared of snakes and spiders, but we've got plenty to offer. It depends really. What you want to do when you come here. We've got plenty of beaches. I think we've probably got coming to close to most beaches in the world. I think. You can Google that if you like. I'm probably wrong, but we've got plenty of beaches. Plenty of states have plenty of, like South Australia. If you like wine, Barossa Valley. Go to Barossa Valley. They have some of the best wines in the world. Not that I know because I don't drink, so I don't care about that sort of stuff. So if you want to go to Queensland, they have Movie World. They have what else they got? They have a bunch of different worlds, but Movie World's pretty popular. Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Movie World. I was at Movie World. It was an experience, really. I mean, it's I like that kind of thing, amusement parks, and but people. I also went to the Wet and Wild Park.
Oh yes.
I don't know is it still there?
As far as I know, it is. Yeah. We don't have any. We don't have anything like that here in Adelaide. We used to have these types of things, but over the years, we've only got. It's called the Beach House. It's just like a big house full of amusements. It's got a water slide and that sort of thing. That's all we got.
So the beaches. Which ones would you recommend?
In the whole country?
Yeah, pick a couple.
Well, that makes it hard because I've never been to them. But Bondi Beach, I guess. Bondi Beach. That's in New South Wales. What else? Even some of the beaches here, so Semaphore or Glenelg. If you come to Adelaide, Australia, go to Glenelg, 100%. I plan to move there